Welcome, everybody. Good to see you for our week 4 sync. Hopefully you've had a good week so far. So it looks like Matt is going to be kicking us off with our demos for today. So Matt, take it away.
Awesome. So for demos today, I know that we're working with, I think it's issue number 7 or 8, I want to say. So with the group that's working with issue number 7, if y'all want to get started, who's going to be doing what?
Alex, I think, is going to share.
Okay.
Yes. Can we enable screen sharing, please?
Should be good now.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, take it away. Thanks, y'all.
Perfect. So, can you see the right screen that I'm sharing? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So Reynolds and my issue concerned showing a welcoming prompt rather than an empty filtered list. And in order to do this, we created a function that checks if a list is empty inside of the list component. But to begin, we did include a timer because we have a ternary operator that is rendering in the return statement of whether that is true or false. To show an example, I will enter with an empty list that I know exists, and there's your loading. So our loading is used in the use effect where a timer is set for about half a second. And once that timer is set to false with our use state, which is also on line 9, then it renders the return statement that we're looking for. So if loading is true, we have our loading statement appear, and if it is no longer true, it will return the proper return statements that we're checking for. I'm going to pass it on to Randall to talk about our prior logic when it came to checking if a list was empty or not.
Right. And so a couple things. Yesterday, we were struggling a little bit because we originally thought we could just look at the length of the data. And that's why I think some of you saw in our PRs, we had if data is equal to 1, because even in an empty list, the ID showed up, right? As like, so we had to get the length of 1. And then I think Matt gave us a hint about filtering. And so instead of what we're doing yesterday, which is setting read to 1, I think Alex found a better way to kind of check for things like that. And before she takes that away and talks about her logic, you'll notice what we added to the page under add items is we said add items to your shopping list. We actually even had a little shopping list icon, but realized we should wait on styling. So that's why it's not there right now. And then once they, so if nothing is there, they get to add items, hit the button that'll navigate them to the add item, which I think I'll hit later, right? Did you want to go back to?
Yeah, you could talk about. For sure. Yeah, so what check for empty list is returning is a true or false return value. And if we go to line 24, what we did was we mapped through the shopping list data array that we received and returned items that the property name of those items. And if it is an empty list, then it means it would include an undefined inside of it. So if it wasn't, that means it didn't include an undefined. So that was a way that we chose to filter whether a list is empty or not without using the length, because we know that currently our collection right now is returning an empty ID in the collection. So with this function, it should work regardless of whether that collection returns an empty or single ID that doesn't have anything inside of it, because it's checking for properties that have names. And if a list does not have properties that have names, therefore it is an empty list. And so that's why check for empty list returns true if it is empty and false if it is not empty, which is how our ternary operator works. yeah, if you want to finish with the handle add item, Randall.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, down at 66, we've got a button for handle add item. And so that's what they click. And then if you think you scroll up a little bit to, what's it, 49, we've got our handler. And simply it navigates into the add item. So they can go and start doing that.
Yeah.
Anything
Perfect.
else?
I
Did
was
we
just
talk
gonna
about the trend
show.
view? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and then we kept all the old information of like what that filter looks like when it isn't an empty list. So for example, what we had before appears here. But one thing that I did notice with how we used our timer for loading is that we used rather than it rely on whether data or not was loaded, we're using an actual like second timer, which means that every time we go to list, it will always show loading. And I wasn't sure, we weren't sure how to like manipulate it so that that doesn't happen. So that might be something we'll have to work on this weekend. But yeah, any questions about this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's by the way, thank you for that demo. That was great. I don't know if it's a question about what you've shown so far, but I guess are there loose ends that you need to work on other than the one that you mentioned there just a minute ago?
Sorry, can you say that last part again?
Are there loose ends?
Are there loose ends other than what you talked about just a moment ago?
Oh, that's a great point. I think it really is just the flash, unless you can add on to this as well, Randall, but it's just the flash display. We aren't sure how to manipulate it so without the loading prompt, where it doesn't flash like the false of the return, the false option briefly of the return statement. So it really just lies in like how loading works, or if we should still use loading, if there's a way so that it just doesn't return the wrong Boolean initially briefly. Like that's kind of just our main issue right now, unless our check for empty list isn't as efficient as it could be. And if you have anything to add, Randall, go for it.
I mean, yeah, I looked at other options. I did told ChatGPT and say, hey, why is it that this happens when we click our link? And it talked about, I think it was at a memo option or memo, when I say it, and then a couple other ways to solve it. And they talked about setting state in different ways or use effects. So I did wonder what other ways we could do so that when you click, it doesn't feel like it's, I don't think it's refreshing, but it's not kind of like flashing for a sec, right?
Yeah.
So I have questions about that. Because I feel like in my bootcamp we talked about that, but couldn't find a video where he did it.
Got it. Well, if y'all want to stop sharing, and if the group that had issue number 8 wants to step up, thanks again for that demo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will share the screen for us. And we're going to be going back and forth between a few different ones.
All right, I can see the screen. Take it away.
Okay. Now the Zoom thing's in my way. Michelle, do you want to start or do you want me to start? Let me get to the right place.
Did you want to demo the app first?
Yeah, let's do that. So hang on, sorry, let me just minimize this. Our issue was to be able to check items on the shopping list, and that when they were checked that they would update Firestore with the date last purchased and total number of purchases. And then from there, also that when the app loads and when the list loads, that if an item was last purchased less than 24 hours ago, it would stay checked. So I believe, is it this one? Yep, okay, so what you'll see here is coffee, eggs, bread, and milk have all been purchased in the last 24 hours, which is why they are checked when you refresh. And so if we look in here, bread was purchased yesterday at 9 p.m. What else? Eggs purchased yesterday at 5:45 p.m. But if we look at sugar and flour, flour was last purchased February 2nd. And so you can get really crazy and play around with the date last purchased and start refreshing and watch them uncheck themselves. It's kind of cool. The other thing is that when you check an item, it will update in Firestore. So if we look at flour, just pay attention to the date last purchased and the total purchases. So if I check flour, the total purchases should increase to 6, and date last purchase should update with the timestamp that is right now. So that's what it does. One of the challenges we were having is when I was thinking of, and one of the last acceptance criteria was around updating Firestore when you check or uncheck an item. And so we spent a lot of time on what happens if you uncheck an item and still have things to work through there. So with flour, for example, if we uncheck flour, we would expect total purchases to decrease to 5 and the date last purchase to revert to the previous date. But if we uncheck it, we'll see that the total purchases goes back to 5, but we learned a lot about timestamps, and it's just really challenging to figure that out. And so that's something we're still thinking through. And we know there were a few other options that we didn't fully manage to figure out. One was to disable the checkboxes. Another was to have a button that you could check and uncheck your list and it wouldn't update Firestore right away, but if you check the button, it would, but we did not get that far. We grappled with that for a little while last night and decided to take a break. I will move to the code. Let me see. Is VS Code sharing, or do I need to reshare that? I know it's good.
I can see it.
Okay. So let's start with list item. We mostly worked in list item and in Firebase. So previously, list item was basically just returning the list item, and we did a lot to it. Michelle, do you want to start? Do you want me to start? I'm happy either way.
Yeah, so what we returned so previously it was just the name, and then we returned like a check box, I believe, right next to each name of the item list or the items. And if a user checked, so we have the onChange there, and we also have the checked property. And if the user interacted with the checkbox, it would go to our handle check function, and that will be taking the current list that they are in, which is taken from our local storage. And inside of that handle check, we are also calling our state setter function, which is the set check. And we are passing in a callback function inside of it. So in the parameters, React has this functionality, I guess, where it takes the previous state that it has, and as its first parameter. And so we are just making use of that. In this case, for example, if the item list is unchecked, the default state would be false. So the parameter previous check there would equal to false. And inside of that function, we are calling the update item that we have imported from our Firebase API. And we are passing in our list ID, item ID, and the negation of the state that the list has, or the item has. So if it was false, if they checked it, then it would return true, and it would pass that true value to our update item function. And it's also going to return that value so that React can keep track of the state. And as for the use effects, I know that was all Sarah's efforts. So go ahead, Sarah.
This was this was my education and timestamps. So basically use effect. This is where that where the feature comes in, that if a checkbox has been, if an item has been purchased in the last 24 hours, that it will show as checked. And so a few things happening here. First thing is that we need to take what is the time that it's checked, or what is the time that you are opening the app, and what is the time that it was last purchased, and is the difference between those two less than 24 hours, and then it will be checked. And so current date gets the timestamp for when the user opens that the list view. And then purchased date, this is taking the date last purchased field from Firestore. And so that field can have kind of two different values. One is null if the item has never been purchased. And one is the date last purchased timestamp. And so basically, if there is a value in date last purchased, it will be converted to a date. Firestore has its own timestamp format, and so you have to be able to change that to a date. And if it's null, it will stay null. And the to date function does not, or the to date method does not work on the null value. So once we have either null or the purchase date, we take the elapsed time, so current date minus purchase date, and then the elapsed time, that value will come out in milliseconds. And so you have to convert it to hours, which is 1000 times 60 times 60. And then if this value is less than 24 hours, then it will set the value of check to be true. And if it's less than 24 hours, it will be false. So that was that. And we had some hiccups in the types of values that were in date last purchased, but that was part of a different issue with that issue of trying to calculate what happens when you uncheck an item. So that is the list item view. I think just a couple other things. We took date last purchased. We added that in list here at the very bottom to pass that to list item. So then moving to Firebase. Here we are. Ashel, do you want me to start this one and then you, or what do you think about this one?
You can go ahead and start and I'll add in what I can.
So we started out here needing to get to the specific items within a list. And so this is how you get to a specific item in the collection, or a specific document in the collection. And then update item, it takes the list ID, that item ID, and whether or not the item is checked. And so we start with the total purchases. And so to get the current total purchases that are in Firestore, this is how you get that data. And then let's see, and I'm actually going to jump down past the date last purchase to here. So basically what this is anytime an item is checked, the total purchases will change to what that value was plus 1. And if it's unchecked, it will change, or it will take 1 away. That's not what this is, just kidding.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So I added the ternary there because as I was checking Firestore, if the item was initially 0, if it was previously checked and then you uncheck it, it's going to go to a negative. So if it was equal to 0, we just have the ternary there that it will just automatically stay at 0 if it was less than 0. I mean, equal to 0, sorry. But it was greater than 0, then you would increment it.
Perfect, thank you. And then, so that's what happens with total purchases. And then with the date, again, this is how you get the specific value of a field in Firestore from that item. And so if that exists or is not null, Ashel, is this one of the ones that you'd refactored as well?
Yes. So if it was not null, it's going to take the date that it currently has in the date last purchase property, and store that value in this variable. But if it was null, it's just going to have the create a new date object, because
Perfect.
otherwise it's going to have a console error.
Okay. And then again, if it's checked that date last purchased will turn into the new date. And we did not figure out the right way to do that for if you uncheck an item. And so right now it just stays at that new date, even if an item is unchecked. So after all of this, it will update the document with that new date last purchased and the new total purchases.
Yeah, one thing also is that on line 95, the original date last purchase, we were trying to store the original timestamp there, which was recommended by our mentors to do. But that list item snap.data.date last purchase is always being updated dynamically by Firestore. So it's not getting, like, if it's not getting that original timestamp, it's because every time you check the item list, Firestore is always updated. So original date last purchase variable is also updated, even though what we really want there is the old value. And so that's something we still need to figure out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a great job doing that demo. Sounds like we need to move on to the next section, and y'all have a pretty good handle on what you have next to do. So with that, what section are we headed into next, DJ?
All right, Volha is going to lead us into our retro. And she just dropped a link in the chat.
Yes, so please take next 5 minutes. DJ, could you please share your screen as well for the retro?
Yeah, I got it.
Wonderful, thank you. Please take the next 5 minutes to go through the list. Write down what you think went well, what could be improved, and we can work together on some of the action items as well. If you know something on top of your head, feel free to add it there, and we can stop the recording and we'll be back at 11:30.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So hopefully we can all see our board. Cool. And Volha, did you want to go through it?
Yes, definitely. So let's start with kudos first. I think my comment is first. So I want to give a shout out to the team for clear communication and support. I really love to see how you volunteer to help each other and cover each other's backs. That's impressive.
Mine's the next one, and it was just really great working with Michelle on such a challenging issue this week.
Oh, I think that is mine. Oh, I just appreciate the mentors for their code reviews. It's always super helpful, and just like when they ask even the obvious questions, that sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I wish I should have done that. So it's really helpful. So thank you.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to shout out to Randall. Again, I feel like you radiate positivity in our group, which I really appreciate. And I don't know, I always see you just like so eager to jump in and take on new challenges and learn new things. So definitely want to highlight that and say, keep that going.
To continue the Randall positivity train, I just wanted to shout out Randall for being an awesome partner per usual. And ditto DJ. Randall, I told you this too. You have such positive energy that emanates from you. And I just appreciate your flexibility this past week and your inquisitiveness with all of the JavaScript functions that we've been working with.
So this one's for Sarah. I really love my experience with Sarah. I think was able to think critically about our issue, and even though we might not always come up with the perfect solution, we good teamwork, I believe. So
Thanks. Mine's next, and I didn't proofread because I mentioned that Alex was a brilliant and supportive partner. So supportive, I wrote it twice, and helped me get up to speed. Like I said, I'm learning a ton, and you guys make it really easy to ask questions and not just sit there quiet and feel ashamed that I don't know what the hell I'm doing sometimes. So thanks for all that. Appreciate it and getting me, bringing me along. And thanks to all of you.
Ooh, okay, this next one's me, I think. Okay, yeah, Michelle, love how you're jumping into challenging problems and really flexing some great problem solving skills. Last week you were like, yep, I want issue number 8. That's me. I'm all over it. So yeah, I just think that like sense of like, I got this, like, I'm going to take this on is really, really cool to see. So nice job.
Yeah, I think this next one's mine. Just directed to the group in general. When it comes to timestamps, and I think sometimes it gets referred to as temporal data, and also like asynchronous loading and stuff. These are some of the hairier problems that we deal with. So y'all are getting kind of scratching the surface, but just admire your tenacity with it. So that's it.
Awesome. Alex, definitely wanted to call out your PR reviews. I love, like, again, you give great feedback, really complimentary, but also like, I feel like you work in your suggestions really well too, which is, that can be a tricky thing. And also like, you're super willing to like help out with other groups or like, just with other like side tasks that are going on. So yeah, just love your willingness to kind of be a team player. Sarah, also again doing amazing work each week, and I'm really like, I love seeing the questions that you bring up. I feel like in this last week's PR, like you definitely had some good questions to think about. So definitely want to encourage that moving forward as well. Anyone want to take the
Sorry
last?
about that.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Volha for office hours this past week. Me and Randall had some general questions about resources for bootcamp grads, and she sent those over on Slack, which we're really grateful for.
Yes, I second that shout out. Thanks, Volha.
You're very welcome. I'm always happy to help. All right, wonderful. Now let's go to what went well. I want to highlight that I really love seeing the PRs drafts coming up early, and I love seeing the questions in the chat and also pushing your changes and updates really quickly. So that's really good.
I think this one is mine, but if it's actually someone else's, please let me know. I thought it was really helpful this week when Michelle and I tried to get some help like earlier on than when we were done or trying to solve everything, and getting help earlier on was super helpful.
Yeah, I also ditto. I appreciate being able to ask questions and stupid questions, and yeah, working early on the PR. I'm appreciative of like the time that we're given to this and any team that I'm a part of or pair, sorry.
oh, sorry, I think that's me. That's just like for everyone in the team. I think everyone is just very dependable, flexible, willing to help, just like DJ highlighted with Alex. Really appreciate that, and Volha with all her resources. So thank you, team.
Next one's mine. I thought it was really nice to kind of hear from folks, mentors and teammates, and I was like, oh, we got things done early-ish that we were even styling a little bit, but that made it easier to work with other stuff later after the PR. So thanks for all the chatter and all the support.
Anyone want to take the last one? Coordinating and meeting early.
Oh, that may have been me as well. Oops. Sorry. Yeah, reiterating about our meeting times and how we do that early is really great. And I appreciate that I'm able to communicate with my team. And I tend to be an over communicator, which has its good and bads, but I appreciate like people letting me over communicate, I suppose.
All right, thank you for sharing. Now let's move to what could be improved, and I can also start. So I would say we should be able to continue the conversation when we get stuck to get unstuck. This week, I noticed that I left a few comments that were ignored. So I don't know if you received them. I don't know if you read them. I don't know if they were helpful. And I don't know how to help you if I don't see any feedback. So I would suggest, like, I don't know, maybe send a reaction or send like, this is not something that we're looking for. Just give some sort of a feedback so we know if it was received.
This next one is mine on, I think before we get started.
Oh, sorry. I think you were muted, maybe.
Oh, sorry about that. Of when we get started on this, when we get started on a new issue, to just have like a very clear understanding of what we need to do and what is like not something we need to do, I know would be super helpful for me.
Mine's next. I sent a message on Slack as well, but I was a bit late in sending my code reviews in. I think a part of me like subconsciously slacked off because I knew that there were still issues being worked through. So I wasn't sure like when was the best time to like offer my comments. And also I had my own issues last night. So I have to do better next week on sending those in sooner. And I realized that a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of like problem solving comes after the code reviews, which are usually like the PR reviews are like comes in Thursday night, and then I have class Friday day, and then I'm working on it Friday night, and then boom, it's the demo. So I have to do better on like addressing comments sooner so I can work on it faster.
I think I'm the next on the time with PRs troubleshooting. Yeah, I kind of agree with what Alex was saying, and sorry about that. Well, I have the bad habit of looking on my phone saying I'm going to respond when I get in front of my laptop, and I probably missed a couple things. But I think also we finished work early, but then kind of like Alex was saying that like, oh wait, now what do we do to update it and fix? It's like, oh, maybe time needs to be made before this morning to handle those kind of last minute fixes, because that does get a little bit stressful. So I agree, we can definitely communicate and work on the second half of the week better, I think.
Cool. Did someone take starting earlier with issues, especially very tricky?
That one's one.
Okay, go ahead.
It's just so we did get our PR draft early on, but I also think that just meeting earlier in the week to just figure out the issue as well, because I think we didn't meet until Tuesday, and of course that's also like depends on people's about when they're available, but I think tackling tricky issues early on would be great.
Cool. Can be really tempting. What is that?
Yeah, that's mine. So it's just that sometimes it's easy to read into what you think are the acceptance criteria, and if you don't read it like pretty specifically, then you're going to infer something that isn't there. But it's just easy to do. So I think y'all touched that on a minute ago. Yeah, thanks for that. Good for you. That's right, DJ. All right.
You want to lay down?
All right. The last one was mine. Still trying to find our weekly cadence, but definitely improving. So I think everyone's kind of talking about that, right? Getting started earlier, getting draft PRs up, but I don't know. I don't want anyone to be stressing out Friday nights. Hello, like, there's better things to be doing on a Friday night. But yeah, I mean, I think all that means is just like getting to Volha's point, getting unstuck earlier, right? Asking those questions and then like just implementing solutions ahead of time. And that way we can like really just tighten up what's happening on a week-to-week basis. But look, this happens on teams all the time, right? It's a constantly moving thing. And like things are definitely getting better if we think back even just like a couple weeks ago. So, we'll continue to build on that.
All right, so a few of the action items. So a few that I outlined, if there's time, try to clean up the backlog. I know this week was a little heavy on the main issues, so that's okay. But it seems like as we go through the weeks, the amount of backlog item grows. And, if someone has free time and wants to volunteer, feel free to do so. Another one was, as everyone said, something to continue doing, starting early on the issues and PRs and maybe communicating. And another topic that I picked up is defining the minimum scope for the issues. So knowing exactly what is the minimum product that matches acceptance criteria, and then do that. And if you have time, add additional improvements. If there are any other themes that you guys picked up that are not on action items, DJ, maybe you have any suggestions and you can type them in. Anyone, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, anyone else want to add anything?
It could be something that we're doing great that we should continue doing as well. So it's not only, like areas of improvement, it's in general action items that you would prefer to do as a team. So if there are any common topics.
I'd say everyone keep being like encouraging and patient with each other. And I really love that energy from everyone and would love it to continue.
Sorry, can you say that first part again? I missed out on it.
Yeah, sorry, my computer is struggling this week. Everyone just being really encouraging and patient with each other has been a really nice thing.
Sure.
Oh, wrong one. There we go. Cool. Anything else?
Should we put our backlog issue on our action items? For that, I don't know. This is the one that I offered to help with also, but I know we all got caught up with things this week, and I think Sarah mentioned it in the comments as well. I don't know if that's an action item we should write, or if that's something that we can hold off on for now.
I believe DJ addressed it really nicely last call, that we should create an issue instead of an action item because it's more technical, right? So we can just keep creating issues for everything we find, and whoever has ability to pick it up can just jump on it and fix it. And we should split it into different issues so they're not interdependent. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, wonderful. That concludes our retro, and the next are issues for this week.
Cool. I'm gonna share a different screen. I have a hunch that was not included in the recording. I apologize.
And also, did a shout out to you. Thank you for jumping on and being helpful and sharing everything.
I try my best. Okay. All right. So we are here. Let me bring this over. Just a second. Multiple screens here. Okay. There. All right. Cool. All right. So real quick, I do want to touch on just kind of a state of the world where we are now. I know that branches still have not been merged. So we'll go over issues for next week. But I think like in the near term, obviously, we got to make sure that like all the AC are in place for 7 and 8, and we get those merged. And to Alex's point, there may be some merge conflicts. And yeah, you'll just want to kind of like work together and make sure that everything is getting into main that should be there. You can use GitHub. I don't usually do it in GitHub. I usually do it in VS Code. It shows you like current change, incoming change, allows you to accept whatever. So just kind of be careful though, tread lightly, because like, again, you don't want to overwrite something that should be there. But yeah, reach out if you have questions about any of that. Cool. So let's talk about issue number 9 coming up. So as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an empty item or an item that's already on my list. Users shouldn't be able to add an empty item to their list or add the same item twice. If they try to do this, we need to show them an error message that explains the problem. This way we'll prevent some clutter in their lists. Yeah, so the AC for this, we're going to show an error message if the user tries to submit an empty item. We'll also show an error if they try to submit a new item that is identical to an existing name. For instance, if the list contains apples and their user adds apples, right? So notice identical is in italics. That probably means something. I'll have to figure that out. At the end of the day, right, you're probably going to be like sanitizing any user input, right? So like thinking about capitalization, like all that stuff, it's all going to be like moved into the lowercase eventually. So that's probably all you want to take into account. Show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that matches an existing name with punctuation and casing normalized. For instance, if the list contains apples and the user adds all these different variations, right? Capital P, a space in between, etc. So again, you just kind of want to be aware of all those different variations. And then, yeah, the last one is that the user's original input is saved in the database. Okay, so not a lot in terms of notes. Again, this is just kind of like thinking about how to, think about the user experience in this case, and how to kind of make this work out well. Any questions about this issue? Looking good. Okay, nice. We already have React Hot Toast, so you got the notification already there, so that should be fun to see what those look like. Cool. And let's look at issue number 10. As an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time of my purchase is recorded in the database so the app can learn how often I buy different items. I love that we're talking about the item like, this is their time right now. So in order to advise users about when to purchase things, the app needs to be able to calculate that guess and store it a future date. So the calculate estimate function from the utils that we've already brought in, it's going to help us know how many days in the future a purchase should happen. In order to use that function, we need to know how many days have passed since the time the item was last purchased. Cool. So the AC for this, when the user purchases an item, the item's date next purchase property is calculated using the calculate estimate function and saved to the Firestore database. Date next purchased is saved as a date, not a number. So that's something important to keep in mind. And then a get days between dates function is exported from utils/dates.js and imported into the API Firebase module. So this function takes 2 JavaScript dates and return the number of days that pass between them. That's really nice. Okay, so you have some things that are already in place. You'll just be importing them. But yeah, you're just going to need to make sure that this works together. Cool. And then just some notes here to kind of like review. Again, as Sarah and Michelle kind of figured out, there are dates and timestamps in Firestore already. So you'll kind of want to take a look at those docs, see how some of that works. As they also can attest to, comparing and manipulating JavaScript dates is tricky, right? This is not my favorite thing to do, but yeah, it's a thing that we got to figure out. But there is some helpful tips here about converting to milliseconds and that sort of thing. So check out the docs here that are linked. And then, yeah, there's some information about the calculate estimate function that's in there. So you can see the arguments that are accepted and then what it actually returns. So yeah, that function is already filled out for you. It's just a matter of passing it the right arguments in this case. All right, so that's number 10. Any questions about this one?
That's going to affect what they were working on this week, right? So in terms of the order of like, would that entail like working on this week's issue to try to make this one work as well? Or would they affect each other a bit?
Well, this is building on to, right,
Yeah.
this past week's issue. So yeah, I mean, for sure, like we're not going to want to start 9 or 10 until the previous issues are merged into main, right? But yeah, this is kind of what's again the kind of next step in the progression here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Off the top of my head, does anyone know the pairings for this week?
I think I'm with a shell, right?
Nice. Okay, so yeah, any preferences as far as which group gets what issue? So remember 9 is kind of filtering or making sure that like empty items can't be sent and like matching items can't be sent to the database. And then 10 is dealing with all of the dates and the next purchase date and all of that.
Sarah, can we continue into your timestamp experience together, please, in issue 10? Only because I kind of felt a bit overwhelmed with not understanding what was going on with timestamps. So I would love to like learn from you and continue that with you in issue 10. Unless there's other people that might want to. But I do have a lean or preference toward issue 10. I'm ready to dive into it.
That would be okay with me. Ashell and I were laughing last night about how neither of us was going to want to do this one. But
I'm so sorry. I know that's why I had to ask you first before I let you know.
yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Someone. That's right. Okay, cool. So I'll give Sarah and Alex issue 10, and then Randall and Ashell, y'all will be on number 9. We'll get the threads posted in Slack. And then y'all can kind of go forward and planning from there. But yeah, otherwise, I think, again, first order of business is kind of wrapping up this week's issues and getting that merged. And then we can go from there. Cool. Matt, well, anything to add?
No, the only thing I would say, don't get discouraged, like I know some issues could be more difficult. It doesn't mean anything, like read the docs, ask questions, you suffer through it once, and then you'll know how to do it, because many of the issues you encounter right now, that's the issue you will encounter at work and later on, like everyone can do it, you can do it, it's just a matter of figuring this out. So you got this.
I second that.
Great job, everyone.
Thanks. Cool.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll break for the day. Again, be loud in Slack. Reach out if you have questions. And I'm leaving office hours this week, so I'll try to figure out a time. It'll probably be in the evening, midweek. So I'll shoot you a message about that soon. But yeah, look forward to hearing from you all throughout the week.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
All right. Bye.
Bye.